Bare necessity, but simple bare necessity. Bare necessity, but simple bare necessity.
Hey there, it's Reaver and welcome to today's video. I'm going to be doing my quarterly wrap up for the second quarter of 2023. So I did all of the math and everything literally on scrap paper, and it's not even nicely written. We're gonna start with stats and then we'll move into books. Let's talk about books read. I read a total of 34 books with 2 rereads and 8,537 pages read, which is amazing. Oh man, I forgot to add the pages for this book. You should be popping in to actually correct myself. The page count total is 8,944 pages. Of the authors that I read from, 10 of them were first impressions from that author, and 24 were authors that I was already acquainted with that I had read from before. There is one exception to this, and that is an anthology that I decided not to count on this because there's so many different authors, so I just didn't count that one at all. For the target audience, we have 1 middle grade, 25 YA, which is so surprising to me, and 6 adult. 2 quarters in a row I've had that, so that's kind of crazy to me. 11 of the 25 YA are from the same manga series. There are 2 books that I did not list on this because they are nonfiction. Let's talk about ownership. Of the books that I read, I owned 15 of the books prior to 2023, and I acquired 19 of them. Of the books that I acquired, 6 of them were books that I actually hauled, and 13 of them were ones that I borrowed. Format-wise, we're looking at 19 physical books, 14 digital. Of those 14 digital, 13 were ebooks and 1 was an audio. And then I read 1 book in combination, both physically and with the audio. Of the physical books that I read, 16 were new books and 3 of them were used books. Social aspects are 28 of the 34 books that I read were read socially, so through a book club or for a video, etc. 6 of the books that I read were read independently with no social aspect whatsoever. 2 of them were read for the Literally Dead book club. I did not get to the June pick prior to the live. 4 were read during Graphics-a-thon. Of the books that I read for content, 3 of them are for solo videos that are about that series individually or that book individually. And 23 were read for a themed vlog. Ratings wise, I'm not 100% confident on these being exact. Some of these I feel like could be a little bit more flexible, and I will talk about that when I talk about each book individually. The best representation I can give you of that is as follows. I had 0 1-star books. I had 1 2-star book. I had 6 3-star books. I had 5 4-star books and 18 5-star books. Keep in mind that I did read an entire manga series and all of those were 5 stars for me, so the remaining 7 were the rest of the books. So you could also look at it as 8 instead of 18 if you want to count the manga series as a full series, count it as 1 book. A quick tip is that anything that has water on the cover, including the one that has snow on the cover, was talked about in my April showers vlog, and all of the ones with flowers on them, including the one that doesn't have flowers on it but was the Literally Dead book for that month, so I went ahead and stuck it in that video anyway. Those are all in the Mayflowers video. And that does also include the Cameron, which I know doesn't really look like it has flowers on it, and Emily in Real Life, which also doesn't necessarily 100% look like flowers, but we're gonna go with it. Alright. Okay, as for the nonfictions, I have 2 poetry collections that I read. First up, To Make Monsters Out of Girls by Amanda Lovelace. This collection kind of was on the fence for me, and it kind of pushed me away from Amanda Lovelace because I have found that she tends to write very romantic centered. I prefer a balance of romance and non-romantic poems. So in the future, I think I'm going to kind of just be a lot more picky when it comes to Amanda Lovelace and probably not buy any more of her books, just borrow them. This I gave a 3-star rating. The next poetry collection I have is Where Hope Comes From by Nikita Gill. This was actually written during the pandemic. I was not aware of that when I first picked it up, that it was going to be kind of focused around that experience and that time frame. And knowing that, I very much appreciate it and its efforts. I was hoping for a little bit more like applicable to general life, but regardless of the fact that it was a little bit different than I was anticipating going into it, once I started reading, I kind of settled in. I still really enjoyed this, and I gave it 4 stars. I have 2 novels that I read that are centered in realism, and then the rest of the reads are graphics. We have Anna Lee in Real Life. This is a YA contemporary following a gamer girl who is in high school, feeling like isolated. Her and her best friend had kind of a falling out, and they don't talk anymore. In the course of this novel, she ends up in a sort of sudden and surprising fake dating situation. I talked about this in my May Flowers video, so you can go to see more thoughts, more in depth there. Basically, what I struggled with this one is the fact that at the end, 1 or 2 of our character arcs is completely reversed. It had potential, but the ending really knocked it down for me. It was going to be like a 4 or even a 5 potentially, but the ending really did a number on me, and I dropped it down to a 3. The other contemporary I read was also a YA, that is 10 Truths and a Dare by Ashley Elston. It's a girl who is about to graduate high school as the salutatorian and gets an email from her principal that, oh, oops, turns out your off-campus PE credit that you did, I didn't get a signed form from that. When she goes to address it with the coach, he's like, you didn't do enough hours for me. You came in late too many times and missed too many classes. You're gonna have to earn it back. She doesn't want her mom to know though, because if her mom knows, then everyone finds out and they all discover that she's actually not perfect and she doesn't have it all together. And this is my second read from this author. She also wrote 10 Blind Dates, which is a Christmassy read, and I loved. And you will get spoilers for some of the things that happened in 10 Blind Dates in this one. I was hesitant because I have been gravitating away from YA contemporaries. However, I feel like there are a few YA contemporary authors that I still will always be here for. And Ashley Elston, I believe, is going to be one of those. This is my second read from her, so I'm not going to, say for sure 100% that she's a favorite YA contemporary author, but at the moment, I actually forgot I had an audiobook that I read that is also in the realism section. This is Mountain and the Sea. I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head. This is an audiobook. It's an Audible original, and I listened to it during my May Flowers video, so you can go watch that for more details. It was fine. If the ending had been better, I would have loved it more. I think I'm giving it like a 3.5. So now we're going to move into the graphic novels and manga section. This has both realism and speculative books in this section, but we're going to start with the realism ones and then do the speculative ones. Your Lie in April. This is a manga series. It's 11 volumes. I had actually watched the anime of this a while back, several years ago, and loved it. And so when I was trying to figure out what to do for my April Showers video for a manga series, Your Lie in April popped up and I was like, oh, it's perfect. And I really loved it. It was so good to be back in that. Alright, so let's move into the speculative ones. This one was a reread. It's Nimona by Indy Stevenson. It was my first time reading it physically because I originally read it digitally, but then I bought a copy because I loved it. And this was the group book for this past round of Graphics-a-thon. It's about a girl who is a shapeshifter that goes to try to help a supervillain take down the system. This is a 5-star, of course. I have another reread, and that is Cosmo Nights by Hannah Templer. And this is basically anarchist jousting in space. I love it a lot. And I reread it because the other one that I read was Cosmo Nights Book this came out and I was so excited. I read it as fast as I could. I did have a little bit of a delay because of some of the other things I was reading, but then as soon as I was able to, I picked it up, I read it, and I loved it. It was so good. This was even better than the first one, and if you have not read Cosmo Nights yet, go read it so that you can read this one, because like the first one is good and the first one was already 5 stars for me, but this, the development of the characters, the arcs of the characters was so incredibly done. It was the perfect amount added in where it wasn't like overwhelming how much expansion and growth we got to the characters and the world, but it was like so enjoyable what we did get, and it was like giving us the right amount so that we weren't overwhelmed and our brains didn't go phew, but we got enough to be excited and to be hungry for more, and it was yes. So this next one I don't have physically, that is Aquacorn Cove. This is another one by Kay O'Neill, so the same author of the Tea Dragon Society, The Moth Keeper, etc. This follows a girl who, there's like sea creatures, and it's hard to describe. It's really short. Just go read the synopsis. Loved it. 5 stars. Definitely want to read everything Kay O'Neill puts out at this point. I am determined to just, she's one of those auto 5-star authors for me. Next we have the Marvel Tsum Tsum Takeover comic. This was an adventure. I actually read this on the last day, and it actually is part of my mid-year reading scramble, but we did an early start. Okay, so it's about these kids, and this metal box falls from space and lands and next to them, and then one of them is determined to become a superhero, so he takes the box because he's like, maybe it has radiation, maybe we'll turn into superheroes. And so he takes the box inside, they open it up, and there's these little white things in it. And then the next thing you know, the Avengers are in Brooklyn to fight Ultron, and they go outside to watch the Avengers fight and try to get a picture. And then while they're getting their picture, the Tsum Tsums see, here's what they looked like. They're like little marshmallows. So then the Tsum Tsums see the Avengers fighting, and they then take on the look of and powers of those Avengers. But then there's a bad guy, and he captures one of them. He captures the Spider-Man Tsum Tsum. And so then, after he captures the Spider-Man Tsum Tsum, he takes him and locks him up, and he's gonna try to harness their power or whatever. And so, yeah, there you go. It's really cute. It was not incredible, and it's definitely questionable. It's a choice. It's really just a marketing thing, but it was fun, and I got it for free from a free little library, so why not? It was a 3. Okay, the next section we're going to do is books that fall in between. So it's one that I'm not going to tell you whether it is a non-speculative or if it is speculative, because I don't want to give spoilers for if a book is speculative or not. I read Unbelievable by Sarah Shepard. This is a continuation of The Pretty Little Liars, which I am trying to read the entirety of. I'm not rating these, and I will not waste time discussing it here since there will be a whole separate video. So if you want my ratings and thoughts on these, then make sure to stay tuned for when the Pretty Little Liars videos start coming out. One of them should be coming out this month. Along the same lines, I also read Pretty Little Secrets, which is the first short story collection. There are 2 short story collections in the series. Another book that kind of I'm gonna go in this middle category is actually The Decameron Project, and that's because it's an anthology, and as you might know, a lot of anthologies have a mixture of genres, and this one is definitely one of those. It has some speculative and some realism, so I'm just gonna put it here. 2 stars. The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. This follows a character who is invited to this very special retreat that her favorite author is throwing. Turns out it's actually a competition. They are writing to compete, and they have to finish their book in the time that they're there, and the winner gets to have her help in publishing their book. I really enjoyed this for the most part. Towards the end, it kind of went a little off for me as far as enjoyment. I like the first part, 5 stars. The last like 100-ish pages was more of a 4. So we landed on a 4. But yeah, if I reread it, maybe I would enjoy the ending better, but it was just not quite it wasn't quite what direction I was expecting it to go in, so it kind of just didn't totally pan out entirely for me. Whisper Down the Lane by Clay McLeod Chapman. This follows a young boy in the 80s having a kind of weird experience with school, and then fast forward to 30 plus years later, and there's this man who is a teacher, and weird things start happening again. But it's different weird things start happening again. It's really an exploration of truth. It's a deep exploration into the world of being a teacher as well, and some of the psychological horrors that you experience as a person who is being trusted with someone else's child, and the fears of what can happen. Now let's move into the speculative books. I did read Fellowship of the Ring. I have yet to decide my rating for this one, so we're gonna keep that out. It's somewhere between a 4 or a 5, but I need to like continue with the series, of course, to really be sure. It's probably gonna be a 5. I'm not gonna go in depth because I have a whole separate video series happening for The Lord of the Rings. So The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. This I read during the Books with Water on the Cover April Showers video thing. So if you want my in-depth thoughts, go there. But basically this follows sisters who have been separated. One is stuck on an island and is trying to get back to her sister. The other is trying to find out what happened to her sister who went missing. It is sci-fi. It is impeccable. If I were to reread this, I might change my mind on my rating. I settled on a 4, but really, this might bump itself up to a 5 upon reread. Next, we have Sasha Alsberg's Breaking Time. And it's about a girl who is in Scotland with her dad, and then suddenly this guy shows up, and oh, plot twist, he's actually from the past. He's from the 1500s? It feels very much self-inserty, and I don't necessarily love that in books a lot of times. The instant ability to be able to wield a weapon just really took me away from being able to enjoy this, and also the fact that I know that she loves Outlander so much, and this, like, even without having read Outlander, like, I feel like this is really just fan fiction, self-inserted fan fiction. The Anatomy of a Curiosity by Maggie Stiefvater, Tessa Gratton, and Brenna Jovanoff. This is an anthology-ish. They also have gone through and annotated. Really, really, really cool. If you are a writer, then definitely check out The Curiosities and this one as well. Next we have The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. It's about this boy. All these memories come back to him from his childhood about this little girl. Brought back all these experiences that had to do with his parents, a nanny, but like make it horror and make it weird creature horror, shape-shifting into anything creature horror, and make it soft magic system with no boundaries that we really understand or know, and it's a very weird experience for me. I think I would need to reread this to know what I think, but I don't know that I want to reread this. King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. It is an angsty good time. For those of you who are looking at this and thinking, oh, okay, a very serious fantasy, no. This is intended to be just fun and fluff but dark. That's what this is, okay? It was a great time. I had an excellent time. She's more toxic than he is, and she's the human and he's the vampire. Let's rewind. So it's about a princess who ends up getting offered to protect her people by going and marrying this vampire king who is taking over everything. And at the meeting that they came to negotiate at, he saw her and was like, yep, you give me her to marry. That's not what I came here for, but I see her and now I know for sure. Yes, that's what I came here for. I didn't know it, but now I know it. And by the end, it's shocking. I was not expecting some of the twists that happen in here, and I definitely want to continue with the series. I put this down as a 4, but now I'm kind of reconsidering and thinking about bumping it up to a 5 because I forgot about some of the things until I started talking. Anyways, Cal probably thinks I'm crazy. If I'm in the mood for it, then I'm in the mood for it, okay? We are finishing out with The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina. This is a story about a woman who is going back home to where she grew up because she got a letter from her grandmother, that said that she's dying, and so it was an invitation to her funeral. And so they all come back, and instead of her dying, she actually turns into a tree. And yeah, you know, like the house was always, they knew that there was something magical happening, but they didn't know why or how it had come about. And so we get kind of the grandmother's life throughout time. Throughout the story, we slowly get to know her life and her, but also her grandchildren and how they are going about life and their arcs as well. So I really enjoyed this. I feel like it was way too short, and I feel like honestly it should have been a duology at the very least, because we could have had much more depth of characters. We also could have had better pacing. That's it. This video, I'm gonna have to work on being able to make these videos in a more timely manner. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, whatever time it is for you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below so that you can become a part of the Bear Scouts, and the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I post. But most importantly, so that I can see you again very soon. Peace out, Bear Scouts.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your stress. I mean it, bare necessities. That's why a bear can rest at ease with just the bare necessities of life. Yeah, with just the bare necessities of life. Yeah, man.